Doggone Sports is a production of Smith Media Team, LLC. Yesterday, ALS got another one. Unfortunately, something I think we all knew was coming, but the passing of Steve Mongo McMichael at the early age of 67.
It's a really sad one, and ALS is kind of that quiet beast. There's no known cure, and it deteriorates. I mean, it starts as something simple. I say simple because it can be just muscle weakness and kind of cramping and a little bit of slurred speech, and then just progressively weakens the muscles and purely impacts the physical functionality of the body, and just sad, silent killer with no cure.
So, my recollection of Steve was, of course, the Super Bowl champions, with the Chicago Bears.
Chicago Bears,
What
Super Bowl 20.
a lot of people don't remember, he was highly sought after out of the University of Texas, but he was actually drafted by the New England Patriots,
Yes.
who cut him,
Mm-hmm.
and then he forged a Hall of Fame career with the Chicago Bears, culminating in winning Super Bowl 20. Um, he also had a brief stint with the Green Bay Packers, longtime rival of Bears. But you go down the list of accolades, and it doesn't really even tell you the whole story of Steve McMichael, because he's one of those athletes that when he got done with sports, he found a second career, and some would even say a third career. Um, he was, again, a Hall of Fame player, like we said, Super Bowl champion, two-time first team All Pro, three-time second team All Pro, two-time Pro Bowl. He was on the All Decades team of the 1980s. Obviously, one of the top 100 greatest Chicago Bears of all time. But he was also unanimous All-American out of Texas in '79. He was first team All Southwest Conference in '78,
There's
'79.
a list. There's a list.
It's pretty impressive.
It is
and,
very impressive.
and what he did um, in his football career, I mean, the guy had over 9,000 tackles. Over 9,000. And playing '80s football.
Yeah, back when it was not the No Fun League. It was back when the game was a true game.
Yeah.
Hard hits, everybody took them except for the kickers. Sorry, guys, but none of this. No fluff rules.
5 shy of 100 career sacks. Just an outstanding career in football. And then he went to the part that I enjoy, the part that I love, and I've loved since I was a kid. He was part of WrestleMania 11.
Okay.
So Lawrence Taylor was wrestling the great Bam Bam Bigelow.
Okay, I vaguely remember this.
And Lawrence Taylor had some NFL alumni there to assist him, because Bam Bam Bigelow at the time was a heel. And so Lawrence Taylor was obviously the face, and he had some alumni there to help him. And this whole interaction at WrestleMania, it culminated into a infamous brawl in March with Kama Mustafa.
God bless you.
You're welcome. And Kama Mustafa was part of Bam Bam Bigelow's stable, if you will. Kama Mustafa for the guys my age. Um, Later became Papa Shango, and then later became the Godfather. And the Godfather brought the hose with him to the ring. The Godfather was infamous for bringing ladies from each city to the ring with him and trying to talk the guy he was supposed to wrestle into taking a hoe instead of wrestling the match.
Oh, okay. My mind went to a completely different scenario. When you said he brought the hose to the ring, I went immediately to Silence of the Lambs. It puts the lotion on the skin or it gets the hose again.
Man, I can't tell you what Charles is into, but it was not that, nor was the Godfather a gardener. Well, he might have worked his way around a bush a time or two, but that being said, so
So was part of his faction with the bushwhackers.
just a little bit before that time, but that would have been perfect. So Mongo moves on to World Championship Wrestling, where he is a commentator. And one of my favorite images is Steve had, and I don't know how big this dog was. Let me just say that now,
Big dog.
because you're talking about a guy who's 6'2", 270 pounds, and he carried his little Chihuahua Pepe with him during commentary, and Pepe was always dressed to the nines, not dressed like Steve. Steve wore pretty much regular clothes, have a leather jacket every now and again, but Pepe was decked out. And you see this big, gigantic human.
Big guys, little dogs.
Big guy, little dog.
It seems to be a thing.
Pepe, Pepe was he was the best. But
I'm going to tell McGregor you said that.
Yeah. Mongo started on color commentary, did very well, but also trained to become a wrestler. Also at the time, for the wrestling fans already know this. I'm not breaking news here, but Steve was married to Deborah McMichael. And Deborah became his valet, manager, etc.
Like woman or Miss Elizabeth.
Correct.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it's kind of funny you bring that up because Steve McMichael will always have a place in wrestling history as a part of what I feel is one of, if not the greatest faction of all time, the Four Horsemen. But how that came about was in '96, Ric Flair had been flirting with Deborah.
Oh, no.
No.
You don't flirt with another man's wife, especially in the wrestling world.
Not a defensive tackle that tears people's heads off for a living. But this culminated in a match with Ric Flair and Arn Anderson against Mongo McMichael and the Carolina Panthers defensive end Kevin Green.
Okay.
Kevin Green was also involved. So, needless to say, the ladies run off to the back, chasing one another. I don't remember who was chasing who. A wrestling fan better than me will surely let us know in the comments or shoot us an email. Ladies chasing ladies, and all of a sudden they all come back from the back, and Deborah has a suitcase full of money and a Four Horsemen t-shirt, to which Deborah hands to Steve, and Steve proceeds to bash Kevin Green in the head and become a member of the Four Horsemen with Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, etc., etc. The rest is history. So once you're a horseman, you're a horseman for life. You can do all the storyline angles you want, but once you're a Four Horseman, you're a horseman for life. But Mongo turned that into a successful wrestling career. Um, and then he also had a pretty decent coaching career after wrestling. Um, and a lot of people kind of overlook that, but he was he was the coach at CFL champion in 2009. So he had a good playing career. He went to wrestling, did everything I think he could do. He became the United States heavyweight champion, and then he goes back and coaches for a time. Um, Coached the Chicago Slaughter, of course, right there in Chicago for the Indoor Football League and won a title. A couple of the other things that come to mind when I think of Mongo McMichael. Um, I believe it was 2001. He got the honor of doing the seventh inning stretch at Wrigley Field, which to me is a huge honor.
It's Wrigley Field.
If I was ever asked to do that, that's bucket list. I mean, that's a huge honor to do that, especially knowing the history of it. Well, the problem with that is that earlier in the game there was a call from none other than one of the most infamous umpires in Major League Baseball history, Angel Hernandez.
Oh.
Yeah, I hate to even bring his name up when we celebrate the life of Steve McMichael, but
I immediately just flashed and said, the Scott Crawford of the Major League Baseball.
yeah, Angel Hernandez needs his finances checked. Anyway, there was a controversial call, and before Mongo starts, take me out to the ball game or the seventh inning stretch, whichever you prefer. Um, he announced over the PA system that he was going to have some speaks with Angel Hernandez.
Oh.
And the problem was that Angel Hernandez wasn't the crew chief, Randy Marsh was. And Randy didn't take kindly to that because the umpires are very incestuous. And so Randy Marsh says, out, and throws Steve McMichael out of the game late in the game, but tosses Steve McMichael from.
And I'm guessing just based on history with this crew, an apology had to be made. Whether it was sincere or disingenuous or whatnot, I'm sure Mongo's boys had to talk to Marsh's boys and say, sorry.
The best of my recollection, I believe that the apology actually came from the Cubs.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
I'll have to, I should do a little bit more research on that, but if I remember correctly, I believe that the apology came from the Cubs and maybe even their general manager, but I won't swear to that.
Yeah, I was just throwing it out there, just thinking about Angel Hernandez and everything that he's done in his life. He's one of those guys that says, "You better apologize to me."
Yeah, but the life of Mongo McMichael was an interesting one, and even to the point where he made the announcement that he had ALS. That was April 23rd of 2021.
Yes, it was.
And he passed away on April 23rd, 2025. 4 years.
4 years to the day from his announcement. Man, that Hall of Fame inductee, he deserved every bit of that. An amazing life crammed into a short 67 years.
But man, what a life did he live.
He did.
He absolutely lived life to the fullest, and he set out and accomplished goals not only in college but in pro football, after football, where a lot of guys don't know what they want to do after football. He He had a path, he took it, went back into coaching, was successful. He did it all, and today we celebrate the life of Steve Mongo McMichael, born October 17th, 1957, passed away from complications from ALS yesterday, April 23rd, 2025.
Leaving behind a wife and a young daughter.
Rest in peace, Mongo. You're a bear. You're a four horseman. You're a legend. Doggone Sports is a production of Smith Media Team, LLC.